now that we've gone over the basics of the engine and got into some basic blueprinting, as well as object-oriented programming practices, let's use those skills to create some pickups of different types for our game. When I say pickups, that's what we are creating, but if you could get creative enough, you can use the same skills to create things like exploding barrels, destructive environments, and all sorts of other things used in all sorts of different games. So let me introduce myself, Insomnia from Unreal Tech, a division of Blender Tech, and welcome to another video. If you enjoy it or learn something, consider liking it and subscribing for more Unreal, Blender, coding, and all sorts of other CG related videos. Lastly, don't forget our motto, create your way. So let's jump right in. So today we're going to be going over interactable pickups. So we're going to make a standard pickup, we're going to make a clickable pickup, we're going to make a moving pickup, and then we're going to make a pickup that highlights, and we're going to do it the easy way. I say the easy way because it's not going to be your typical pickup where it highlights the borders of it. That's a much more advanced topic, which would be a lesson all on its own. We're just going to have the pickup change color entirely when we mouse over it. And then when we stop mousing over it, it'll return back to its original color. Now, all of these pickups are all going to be coming from a single base class. All four pickups are going to inherit from our base class to save us some work and to continue reminding ourselves to use object-oriented programming practices wherever possible. This is where we left off in our third-person template. If you haven't got this project started already, all it is the stock third-person template. And we went and we created just some basic boxes off a base class that used the construction script to create their own shapes and their own unique logic. I am basing this entire project, this entire little game, off of the third-person template. So I'm going to go ahead and delete what we created in the last lessons, and I'm actually going to go to our content folder. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it Blueprints. Having a good folder structure is core to having a game that you can work on other people with, but also so that it gets organized, because things can get messy very, very fast. And we could even change this text to episode 4 pickups. So in our blueprints folder, let's create another new folder. Right click new folder or add new folder, and let's call it pickups. Double click on that, and we're going to right click. We're going to create a blueprint class just like we did before. And we're going to make an actor. Remember, an actor is basically anything that you put in the world that can be spawned, placed, that represents some sort of logic, mesh, or anything in the world. Like I said, the text here is an actor, the geometry is an actor, the guy is an actor, the camera is an actor. So we are going to call this pickup_base. So this will be the base that all our pickups inherit from. So this will be the base class. Just like we talked about before, we went from a base class to a secondary class or multiple secondary classes, and then from each of those classes you can make tertiary classes and so on and so forth. So let's open up our pickup base class, and same as before, let's go straight to our construction script. And we know that all of our pickups are going to need our mesh, so let's add a component, static mesh, and let's call this pickup mesh. So let's do the exact same thing as before. Let's drag off construction script. Let's go set static mesh, and let's turn off context sensitive because this won't work using object-oriented practices. We just want the set static mesh node on its own. We want the target to be the pickup mesh, so drag and drop it onto target. And we want new mesh to be something. So remember, this is a variable. So let's create a new variable and let's call it pickup mesh to display. And we're going to go to variable type over here in the details, and we're going to choose static mesh because it's looking for a static mesh component, a static mesh reference. So a reference to a static mesh, and that's what this variable type is. It's a reference to a static mesh. We're going to make that editable, or click the little eyeball here. You can see that checks off editable. That makes it so that in the details window down here, we have a variable we can see. You'll see the eyeball's yellow. It says we're missing a tooltip, so let's give it a tooltip just so we know what this does. And we're going to say this is the mesh the pickup will render in game. Hit enter, and now the eyeball turns green. We'll give it a category. We could call this rendering. We'll take that variable, we'll drag it onto new mesh, and that is that. So now we can hit compile and save, and that is our pickup base. So now we want to extend pickup base to create our first pickup type, which is just our standard overlap pickup. So let's right click, create blueprint based on this as before, and you'll see now our parent class is pickup base. And if we go to our construction script, you'll see that it automatically fires off the parent construction script every time this is updated or spawned in the level. If you read what the construction script does, the function executed when blueprint is placed or modified. First of all, we want to go into our map. We want to take pickup base child, and we want to just place one in the level somewhere. We'll place it right in front of the player. Now we can't see anything. That's because under our category rendering pickup mesh display, we haven't chosen anything. So let's choose one. Start with any mesh. Like I said, make sure you had starter content enabled when you created your project. So we're gonna choose, let's do a cone for this one. So now we have something we can see. So that is all. However, if we hit play, nothing happens. It's obviously not a pickup. So we need to create logic under the pickup base child for it to be pickupable. However, let's rename that. We want this to be pickup base child underscore standard, so we know exactly what it is. So under pickup base child standards blueprint, let's go to the event graph and let's delete all the stock nodes. We're not going to use them yet. So what we want is to right click, we want on overlap, scroll till we find event actor begin overlap, and you can read what it means, but basically when another actor, so any object, overlaps on it, it will fire off its execution string. We can even give it a comment. Commenting your scripts and code is always a good idea. So when another actor overlaps this, start execution of this string. So this execution string, we're gonna start off just by debugging. So we're gonna go print message, print string, sorry, and we're just gonna say overlap began. We'll hit compile and save. We'll go to our map, we'll hit play, and nothing's happening. Why is that? That's because we're technically not overlapping it. So how do we fix that? All pickups, for the most part, are going to need something to collide with. Do you notice that our player has this little cylinder around him? That's what determines what he collides with and overlaps with. Our cone doesn't have that. So to fix that, let's go into our pickup base child standard, go into our viewport. Now we don't see anything, but we do know that we have a pickup mesh somewhere. But what we want to do is we want to add one of those colliders. So what we'll do is we'll add a component. We have a few to choose from. If we scroll down under collision, we have box, capsule, and sphere, and that should fit all of your needs. Let's use a sphere collision. Nice and general. We'll just call it collision, I can't spell that, collision sphere. Let's go compile and save. But when we go into our map, we don't see it like we do on the player. That's because it's very, very small. So what we need to do is go to sphere radius, and let's try doubling it to 64. Let's hit compile and save. We go into the map. We can just start to see the outside of it. So maybe let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's say around 75. And let's drag it up a little bit in 20 units. We'll go compile and save. And there we go. We have a nice little sphere. Now when we hit play, we should be able to overlap with that, and you'll see we get overlap began. So every time we run into it, overlap began, over and over again, but nothing's happening. So let's create some logic. So on our event graph, in pickup base child standard, so when it begins overlap, it says in string overlap began. However, there's also event actor end overlap. Now, since we have context sensitive on, it'll automatically choose collision sphere. If we turn that off, then it won't choose collision sphere. So on end overlap, so when an actor exits, we want to print overlap ended. So let's compile and save, and let's see what happens. Remember, these are just placeholders for our logic. So let's hit play. So when we go to it, overlap began. When we exit, overlap ended. So what are we going to do when these happen? On actor begin overlap, let's change this to pick up. Even though that doesn't make sense, but pick up. And then on end overlap, let's change print string, let's delete it, and let's use our old friend destroy actor. That's all we need to do for now. So when we overlap it, it'll tell us that we're picking it up, and when we leave it, it'll automatically destroy it. So compile, save, play, picked up, and destroyed. Now you could do this in multiple combinations, but that's how we'll do it for now so that we can show both of these. So let's comment this quickly. When an actor, like the player, leaves the collision area, destroy itself. Tell us we are picking it up. So this is begin overlap. I'm selecting multiple nodes and pressing C to give them a comment to keep everything organized, and this is end overlap. And that is all there is to this pickup. Very, very basic, but it's going to do the job for now. So we'll compile and save. We'll close out of that one for now. Same with the base. Now we want to create our clickable pickup. So let's go to pickup base again, right click, create blueprint based on this. Go back, let's rename it pickup base child underscore clickable. Very similar to the last time, except this time we don't need a collider since we won't be having an on overlap event. Instead, this time in our event graph, we don't need begin overlap, but on event begin play we are going to use. Remember, this is when the game starts or when it spawned into the world for the first time. This will fire off only once. So just like start in Unity. So we want to drag off and create enable input. So what this does is it basically just allows us to use keys and mouse clicks and such on this actor. However, we need a player controller. So if we were using multiplayer, we would need to choose what player is allowed to click on this, for example. But we're just going to drag off this and type get player controller. And since this is a single player game, player index 0, that's our blue man, that's us. We are player 0. So that's all we need to do for event begin play. So let's comment it. So we'll say when play is started or this actor is spawned for the first time, we enable mouse click events to be allowed. And then you kind of have to think backwards. So then it needs a player controller reference. So we kind of go backwards and we get the player controller. So what player is giving the input? Well, player index 0. So that on its own won't do anything. What we're going to do, however, though, we can get rid of event tick 2. We're going to right click. We're going to make a new event, or we're going to find a new event called on clicked. So event actor on click. So when this actor is clicked, fire off this execution string. So let's comment it. When we click this pickup actor, then fire off this execution string. So what do we want to happen when it's clicked? Well, let's just start with our regular debug placeholder print string. And we'll just have it say clicked me. So we'll compile and save. We'll place this one in the level, place it somewhere right over here. We'll give it a mesh. We'll make this one say a sphere. And since its center point is off, we'll drag it up. And by the way, notice how these all have the same thumbnail. If you want to fix that, you can go in your game, zoom in on your object, and get a nice view of it that's unobstructed. And then you can choose it, right click, asset actions, capture thumbnail. Now you have a nice little picture of exactly what it is in your game. We'll do the same for our sphere. We'll get right in close to it, we'll right click, asset actions, capture thumbnail. Now we know exactly what they are. So anyways, let's test this out. Let's hit play. Now when we go over here, we have the mouse cursor here. When we click on it, we get clicked me, clicked me, clicked me, no matter where we are. Clicked me. The clicked me doesn't do a lot, so we will leave that. We could always turn it to not print to the string but to the log for debugging, but we'll leave that on for now. When it says clicked me, let's print another string. This is just a placeholder again called pick up, again, the bad English. And then after that, we want to destroy actor. So these are just placeholders for future logic. Destroy actor from scene. So this is on begin play or when first spawned. We'll add actually enable input. And this is when clicked, print messages, and destroy. Make that nice and organized, compile and save. Give it a test, play. So we have this one that destroys itself and says picked up, and when we click on this one, same thing. Pick up, click me, and it destroys itself. So let's create our last one. So off pickup base, right click, create blueprint based on this, go back. We'll rename it to child underscore highlightable. And this one we're going to get a little bit interesting. We're going to create a little bit extra on the construction script. We're going to drag right off of the parent one that it fires off, and we're going to add turn on context sensitive. So set material, turn it on. We want to set the material of pickup mesh. However, we don't want to call a function on pickup mesh. We want to set material on pickup mesh down here. You'll see target is pickup base C pickup mesh. So we're now that's the base. And so the material, let's just choose green box for now, so it'll be green, compile, save. We don't want that to be green though automatically. So we want to make a new variable. So let's make a new variable. Let's call it standard material, and let's turn it into a material reference. And tooltip, the standard material when not highlighted. And we want a new one. It'll automatically make the same type. This one will be highlighted material. And we'll make editable and tooltip, the material to change to when hovered over. So by default we want the material to be standard material, so drag that onto material and let's choose what material we want it to be by default. Let's just choose something very standard like basic wall, and we'll make it so that it changes that material. So let's go into our event graph and we can delete all these again. So we're gonna introduce a new event. So we're gonna right click and go cursor, turn on content sensitive, and we want event actor begin cursor over. So when the mouse is moved over it with the clickable interface. So we want that one, and we want, obviously, type in cursor, we want end cursor over. On actor begin cursor over, let's drag off, let's do our usual print string debug to test our logic. We just want cursor on, and for end we want cursor off. So let's compile and save and let's test that. So let's hit play, let's move our mouse cursor over it, and nothing's happening. Why is that? It's because of the same thing as clickable. We need to enable input. So let's right click, event begin play. So on event begin play we want to do the same thing, enable input, and the player controller, same thing, get player controller going backwards, and again that's us, so we'll give it a comment. So let's try that, compile, save, and play. It's still not working. Why is that? That's because there's a special setting for allowing mouse over events to happen. You'll notice event when this actor has the mouse moved over it with the clickable interface. We don't have a clickable interface. The quick way to fix that though is after enable input, let's drag off of the return values loop of player controller. So that's us. Let's drag off of it. Let's type in over. We got a bunch of stuff. What we want, you'll see under mouse interface, this is context sensitive, so we know it works just fine with player controller. We don't want touch events, but we want mouse over events. So we want to set enable mouse over events. And we want to set that to true, so check the checkbox off, and then we'll just connect it to the string. So first it'll enable input for mouse over events, and then after that we'll say, actually this would make more sense as enable basic input for our player, and then the next one, enable mouse over events. Comment them as mouse over logic. And we'll comment this one and call it on begin play, enable input, and set mouse over events to enabled. So what do we want to do on begin mouse over cursor? For now we'll leave the print string cursor on, but what we want to do, so we want to set material. However, this time we can't just use the standard set material node because we're inheriting from the pickup mesh. So turn on context sensitive, and instead we want to call a function on pickup mesh, and that function is set material. You'll see now we have target as pickup mesh base underscore C pickup mesh. So that means we're affecting this inherited pickup mesh. So the material we want to set it to on mouse cursor over is highlighted material. Now before we go any further, standard material we set to basic wall, but highlighted material we didn't set at all. So let's set it to our green box material. If you haven't made this before, from the previous videos, all you need to do is right click, create material, give it a name like M underscore highlight, like M underscore highlighted. Open it in the material editor. Off the base color we want to drag off and go type in constant. We want a constant 3 vector, that's RGB, and then just choose a color like green. Hit OK, and then just save, and that gives you a material you can use. In fact, we'll use that for this example. So our highlighted material is going to be M underscore highlighted, even though I spelled it wrong. Alright, so when the cursor begins overlapping, we print the string cursor on, then we set the material to the highlighted material. However, if we don't set it back, then it will just stay there. So on end cursor over, we want to do the same thing, so I'm just going to copy and paste this node. So we want to do the same thing, but we want to set it back to standard material. So let's drag off. Let's go set material with context sensitive again. Remember to call the function off pickup mesh. We want to set the material to standard material. When the cursor is over the actor, print debug string, and then set pickup mesh material to highlighted material. And then down here, the same thing. Print debug string, and then set material to standard material. So let's compile and save, and let's see if that works. So play. Now, when we go over it, it turns green. We get cursor on, we go off. Cursor off. Now this isn't your typical highlighted where it highlights the edges nicely. I'll get into that in a much later video because it's much more extensive using the Sobel effect. But now we have the highlightable pickup. However, we want something to happen. We don't want it to just be highlightable like that. We want it to happen like the other ones where it gets pickupped. So after, just for speed, I'm going to make it clickable. So I'm going to add my event. On clicked, we want to print a string, a debug string. It says clicked me, That'll be our placeholder, remember, for our logic, and then we want to destroy actor. So we'll select those, hit C to comment, and then we'll type in pickup logic when clicked. So compile and save. Let's give that a quick test. So it highlights when we go over it, and when we click it, it says it destroys itself and says clicked me. This one, same deal. When we leave it, it destroys itself. And this one, lastly, when we click on it, same thing. Now, one last thing I'm going to mention on the overlap one. Let's open up its blueprint. We have it so that on end overlap destroy actor. We could make it so that that happens right after we begin overlap, so that it immediately, as soon as we hit it, destroys itself. So if we compile and save and hit play, that might be more what you were thinking. So we hit it, boom, picked up. It stops us for just a split second. So whatever you prefer. I'll leave it like that for now. And lastly, we need to create our moving one. So I'll go through this one as quickly as possible. So we'll make a new blueprint based on pickup base. We'll go back as usual. We'll rename that to child_moving pickup. We'll open it up in the blueprint editor. So under its event graph, we're gonna go into event begin play. And I'm going to go into a few things. I'm not going to describe them since this is getting a lot longer than I intended. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get actor location. We're going to take this vector. So you see if we split it, it's in X, Y, and Z. I'll recombine it. We're going to take that vector. We're going to make a new variable. We're just going to call this original vector 3. We're going to turn this into a vector. It doesn't need to be edible or anything. We're going to set it, so drag it in and hit set, or hold down Alt and drag it in to make a setter. And then we're going to take the return value and put it into the original vector 3. So when we begin play, we'll set original vector 3 to wherever it is. So that way we know where it always where its location began. And so after that, then we're going to set timer. Function name is going to be move x, and then we're going to delay for 3 seconds. We'll go 2 seconds. And then we're going to set another timer. Actually, we don't even need that. We'll just go set actor position. Set actor location, and our new location will be original vector 3, so we'll set it back to its original location. Now this set timer, what it does is it basically says in the time, in that amount of seconds, execute whatever function you've named here. Now we don't have a function named moveX yet, but we want this to loop, and we want it every 0.1 seconds. And I won't get into the details why yet. However, we're going to create that function moveX. So I'm going to copy that text, make a new function, call it moveX. A function works just like in programming, but in this one, we're just going to go add actor offset. We want add actor local offset. We want delta location along the X, save 10. And compile and save, then go back to our event graph. So every 0.1 seconds it will loop move X, and then after 2 seconds it will set it back to its original location. However, since this is on event begin play and only fires it once, we're going to take this execution and we're going to loop it back into the set timer to create a fake loop. It's not the best way to do this, but it's definitely the quickest and easiest. It's cheating a little bit, but we should be able to compile now. And if you haven't done so already, so compile and save, and now drag the moving pickup into your game. Select a mesh. I'm just going to select a basic cube, and I'm going to hit play. And as you see, it moves, and then it goes back, and so on and so forth. And I could reverse it and have it move the other way, but that'll work good enough for us for now. So we'll just highlight this and say on begin play or spawn, move it along the x-axis, then reset to original location, original vector 3. Alright, and then we want our logic. So we'll make this one clickable. So on click, so event actor on clicked, print string. Remember, this is just a placeholder for the future logic. Say clicked me. And then lastly, we want to do the same as the rest. Destroy actor. So when clicked, destroy it and print a string. So compile and save. We'll test that out. So now we have this moving one, and it will push us. So when we click it, boom, it gets destroyed. So that is it for the moving pickup. And again, we can go really in close to it. We can right click, we can go asset actions, capture thumbnail. Same with the highlightable. We can go onto it, right click, asset actions, capture thumbnail. Now all our pickups have thumbnails, and we have all 4 types, and so we can move them and put them all over our level, and we will get to that in our next lesson when we create the GUI. So that's it for now. In the next lesson, we're going to create a GUI that shows us how many of each of the pickups we've collected and build a basic score system. So anyways, thanks for watching from the team here at Unreal Tech, a division of BlenderTech.com. If you enjoyed this video and learned something, please like it and don't forget to subscribe for more videos. We're on social media on the links on your screen. If you disliked this video for some reason, please tell us why so we can continually improve based on your community input rather than just hitting the thumbs down and leaving. We also take requests, and we'll see you next time. So remember, create your way.